bring the dog, do you? It's just that he's got used to me, man, now, and I can't leave him behind, can I?
Oh, no. Oh, my feet. Oh.
What the hell is going on?
In one of my many attempts to avoid doing any serious work, I found myself scrolling through Instagram when I stumbled upon Elizabeth Hurley. Despite getting the Elizabeth Sparkle treatment from Hollywood long ago, Hurley still looks amazing. And I don't just mean for someone who has a decade on me. But as I scrolled to find out what she's up to these days, by the way, it seems it's a horror movie named Piper, based upon the Pied Piper story, a movie that looks only slightly better than the slashers based on recent public domain fodder, I was reminded that Hurley is a close personal friend of another 90s favorite of mine, Patsy Kensit. The two are so close that Kensit refers to herself as aunt to Hurley's son Damien, a person I thought for sure was celebrity number 6 before that mystery was solved, and a man potentially grown in a lab to be the most beautiful human you've ever seen. But the real effect this had on me, besides wasting a good 15 minutes catching up on the lives of hot British ladies and their hot British children, was to remind me that the two starred in this obscure thriller with a strange, unfathomable twist ending nearly 35 years ago. Yes, unlike most Americans whose entry to the Hurleyverse was her role as the inexplicable cuck queen in a Hugh Grant sex scandal, I remember her from this low-budget non-entity of a film that plagued late-night HBO as filler in the early 1990s. Looking back, 15-year-old insomniac me was becoming quite the connoisseur of late-night crap. And we didn't even have Cinemax yet. But I remembered Patsy Kensit from Lethal Weapon 2, and this really looked like it wanted to be another Deadcom, a twisted thriller I really enjoyed, so I was game. What I remember of my reaction was something akin to Krusty the Clown's reaction to Worker in Parasite.
What the hell was that?
I will be setting sail with spoilers, so go watch this one on Tubi if you want to check it out first. First, we have to acknowledge that this film is suspiciously similar in story beats to the Philip Noyce thriller Deadcom, which came out a few years earlier. Both films begin with a tragedy before segueing into a knife-in-the-water style trio dynamic. In this film, we meet the Skipper, played by Jürgen Prochnow, presumably because this was a German production, and he is famous for being on a boat before. In flashback, we see Der Skipper sailing a boat from which a man, Paul, fell and drowned. The scuttlebutt around town, though, is that the man was having an affair with the skipper's wife, and the skipper threw him over intentionally. Although he swore innocence, his wife left him anyway, and the skipper has the reputation in Gibraltar of being an embarrassing old rummy.
And when are you putting out to sea?
I'm taking her out tomorrow. What's the point of sticking around here?
Enter Lou and Sue, played by Hurley and Kensit respectively. They are two beautiful young showgirls who do a little hooking on the side as they look to get out of Gibraltar into somewhere more tropical. Sue, however, is a cartoonish shrew who is physically and verbally abusive to Lou.
I'll tell you one thing, though. You're beginning to get on my tits.
And it's clear that she's going to be positioned as the one with the stick up her ass, while Lou is the cool girl. We see this in their nightly performance, where Sue refuses the audience's call to strip, but Lou goes along with it, and that winds up being significantly less lucrative than you would think an Elizabeth Hurley striptease would be. But still a pretty successful night for the girls. More importantly, they catch the eye of the skipper, who gets drunk with them. So drunk that he doesn't remember having a threesome with them or promising to take them to Barbados. But Sue swears that it happened, so it must have.
It was really nice last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, we really enjoyed it.
The skipper is cool to the idea until the local nightclub owner tries to emasculate him and insults his sea legs. That's enough to drive him out onto the yacht and the beginning of a letter to Penthouse Forum.
How long will it take us to actually get to Barbados?
About 4 weeks.
Immediately you notice that Sue is tiresome and a bully to Lou. Despite their age, Sue acts less mature and whines a lot more. She ignores the skipper's warnings about getting too much sun and fails to keep watch on the ocean when it's her turn, leading to a near miss with some flotsam. This is actually a neat little setup. The skipper is haunted by his past and may be the type of guy who's okay with a little homicide if the mood strikes. But if he's innocent, he's paranoid about the possibility of another accident, especially with two such inexperienced passengers. So he's of course going to be a control freak. Sue is a spoiled brat who craves attention and admiration from both Lou and men, but it's pretty clear that that comes from a place of insecurity. So if she feels like she's going to get frozen out, that can't be good. And finally, Lou seems like she's been under Sue's thumb for too long, so any attention she receives from the skipper while they're alone is welcome.
I'm surprised we didn't see him before, really.
I saw him. I just wasn't interested.
Unfortunately for the film, Sue's antics are so unbelievable and childish that it's hard to stay with the movie. At one point, the skipper jokes that if she doesn't stop being a pain in the ass, he'll throw her overboard. And Sue is so destructive that it actually seems like the most responsible thing to do. She switches from the radio frequency monitoring the other ships to one with music so that she can dance, and her insistence on listening to music runs down the ship's battery, leading to a near miss with a big ocean liner. She rifles through the skipper's things and finds a Dear John letter from his wife. She even has Lou do her hair in his ex-wife's style, a la Vertigo.
I'm here too, so at least look at me.
It really does feel like the class clown any attention is good attention vibe, which would be fine if Sue weren't in her mid-20s. The capper, though, comes when she rescinds the ladder and takes off while Skipper and Lou are swimming, only to circle back and say it was all a joke. After that, they've both had enough of her. But Sue continues to try to drive a wedge by telling Lou that the skipper killed his ex-wife and her lover.
There's only one reason why somebody wouldn't take something like this with them.
That doesn't work, and Lou begins sleeping with the skipper, cutting Sue out altogether. Sue retaliates by hiding the skipper's insulin, triggering the skipper to hallucinate and become violent.
Skipper, look! There's nothing there! You've gone mad!
This leads to an intense standoff that's only resolved when Lou guesses where she hid the insulin, and she injects the skipper, saving his life. Finally convinced she's in no danger, Sue opens the skipper's quarters to find Lou and the skipper having sex. And for some reason, they continue going at it and making her watch, even changing positions while Sue watches on tearfully. Finally, Sue asks Lou not to leave her alone, which is all she's really been afraid of the whole time. The three embrace and seem to come to an understanding as the two women are dancing while Skipper looks on the next morning, just like it was day one. However, Lou excuses herself to go down below before retrieving the harpoon and shooting the skipper in the neck out of nowhere. It's a shocking moment, if only for its Vince Russo and WCW-like swerveness. In other words, it doesn't have to make sense as long as it shocks you. Sue cowers in fear, but Lou explains that the skipper was never going to fit in with the two of them. He was, after all, a man. So I guess this makes it one of the first good for her movies. Sue starts to freak out, saying that she would never actually murder anyone, and she gets so loud that Lou has to smother her with a pillow. A fog sets in, obscuring the belladonna, and a postscript lets us know that the ship sailed into St. Lucia 3 weeks later, and there was no one on board. Kill Cruise only seems to offer two things: copious amounts of skin from Patsy Kensit and Elizabeth Hurley, and a baffling twist ending. Otherwise, the story doesn't offer much in the way of mystery, suspense, or even drama. Part of the problem may be that this is a German-English production, and I'm not sure the central ideas made it through the translation. It seems like the story Peter Keglovich was going for was that Sue would be so bratty as to make everyone think she has some sort of personality disorder, thus alienating the skipper and Lou. They would start a relationship, and then Sue would discover the skipper's shady past. But Lou wouldn't believe her, thinking she's crazy. And while those events do happen, the only thing we're left with in the edit and in the performances is, why is Sue like this? Sue is bafflingly bitchy, and I don't think it's a poor read on the character by Kensit, because I turned this over and over in my head wondering how else she could have played the character, and this is it. She's just written to be a petulant teenager in a grown woman's body. And maybe that would have been the one way to save this movie. Lou and her teenage sister are stuck in Gibraltar, and the sister has always been jealous of Lou, so she sabotages the trip and competes for Skipper's affections. At least the relationship dynamics would have made sense. Kensit and Hurley are both fine, although Kensit is asked to do much more. And it seems like a lot of Hurley's lines may have been ADR'd in post, making the performance a little more stilted than it really should be.
You
And Jurgen Prochnow also turns in a fine performance as the skipper, but his casting violates the one cardinal rule of filmmaking: don't make me think of the better thing. By far, the role Jurgen Prochnow is best known for is the U-boat commander in Wolfgang Petersen's classic, Das Boot. The film was already behind the 8 ball for reminding me of Dead Calm, and it's like all those movies that cast Morgan Freeman as a world-weary detective trailing a serial killer in the late 90s. You're just making me want to watch Seven again. Most critics and reviewers focus on the puzzling ending with Lou, who was the only one of the characters who showed any kind of chill the entire film. But at the end, she goes postal and kills her shipmates. There is a discord between Lou's explanation and her childlike weirdness after killing the skipper. She sings a light song, draws his heart and blood, and then tastes it, This is not a person who is thinking about the practical impact of the murder on her relationship dynamics.
You said that he didn't fit in with us. You know he didn't. How could he? He was a man, wasn't he?
This is a person who is cuckoo for coconuts, and the big problem with that is that there is no indication that that's what type of character she was. The only inklings we get are that she was willing to do what it takes, including stripping to get to Barbados. And early on, the skipper asks in his journal whether she's friend or foe.
Lou is at least cooperative, but I don't know what to expect from her. Is she my friend? Is she my foe?
Yeah, no, that's a weird fucking question.
Upon its release, the film was called illogical and trivial, and I think both of those are reasonable and, quite frankly, kind criticisms. There's an amateurishness to the plot that feels like the same problems that haunt The Snowman or Madam Web. There's just something missing here that would tie this all together. It's like each character is missing one scene that would connect us to them. Regardless, this film has attracted its own tiny fan base. I won't call it a cult following, more like an AA meeting in the back room. It is an intriguing concept of a film, after all, and it does deliver Patsy Kensit and Elizabeth Hurley in bathing suits for nearly an hour, so if you're not asking for more than that, you won't be disappointed. It's just too bad this couldn't live up to the inspiration of Dead Calm. Stay warm, stay safe, wash your hands, return your shopping carts. One hand for you and one hand for the boat, and I'll see you next time.